This is the US-Mexico southern border. Every day, people spend hours in line waiting to cross to the other side. The United States employs over 40,000 workers to protect it. But what would happen if we got rid of it? And with it, got rid of ICE and the Border Patrol? Let's not get caught in any details here. Open borders don't necessarily mean there won't be checkpoints, a cultural language fluency program, some kind of application process, or unfettered access to social services. An open border here means a system that gives individuals the freedom to determine where they want to live with few restrictions, whether they're poor or rich, or skilled or unskilled. And philosophically, if you consider yourself egalitarian or libertarian, the open borders allow for the most freedom of all people. The smartest and brightest can succeed instead of having their talent squandered in areas that don't allow them to. Borders are a gross restriction on people's innate right to self-determination. Here's a little thought experiment. Joey is an experienced carpenter, and he makes some of the finest chairs in all of the land. He crosses the road to sell them in the market, but upon arrival, another man, let's call him Barack, arrives with a gun, commanding Joey to go back from where he came. Joey, tired and hungry, is unable to make the journey back, and dies on his way home. Did Barack kill Joey? Put simply, yeah. A lot of people reject the ethical argument as bleeding heart liberalism, removed from the intricacies of the real world. If we allowed everyone in, the argument basically goes, it would just ruin the country for the rest of us. So let's analyze just how an open borders policy would affect the USA. There are over 65 million asylum seekers worldwide. These are people all over the world facing hunger and famine. Along with asylum seekers, we would be welcoming economic refugees, people who just want more opportunities, as well as adventurous, who want a new place to live. The country would see a population boom in the tens of millions. These people would span all parts of the world, from Latin America, the Middle East, Asia, and Africa. The migration towards the United States would eventually stabilize as market forces adjusted. Around 11 million people would also gain citizenship. Could the United States survive such a huge increase in its population? On the economic side of things, there are numerous papers published on how immigration helps the economy. One example is the Economic and Fiscal Consequences of Immigration, published by the National Science Education Journal, a behemoth that provides Congress with information on immigration. This premier study found that the labor force increase that immigration provides boosts the economy, especially in Western countries with an aging population. It also found that the more minds in a country contributes to innovation, and entrepreneurship is a necessary cog in the capitalist machine. The lower skilled immigrants contribute by strengthening local economies and driving down the prices of goods. Contrary to what the media would have you believe, immigrants, no matter their origin, come to work hard. In the long term, they provide measurable economic benefits. The belief that they drive down wages, while not completely unfounded, is overemphasized. It's hard to calculate the exact effect immigrants have on wages, but numerous studies have argued that the effects are negligible. The minuscule fractions on the dollar lost in native wages would be outweighed by the overall economic benefits they would receive. And it's immigrants who are most affected by more immigration, not native workers. Immigrants also do not in any measurable capacity affect the job market for unskilled native workers. It is speculated that the world GDP would double in a world market without borders. That's huge. The system would probably experience some shock before the market stabilized. Poor immigrants may require public benefits to get their feet planted, but there are numerous policy decisions that could alleviate this. From taxing immigrants to ensure they paid more into the system than they took out, to taxing the rich who benefit from the cheap labor immigrants provide. Or maybe having a funnel system where we allow everybody in, but during a period of a few years, to ensure that the market has time to adjust. These problems are not insurmountable, and states can enact numerous measures to ensure that we mitigate the negatives while amplifying the positives. Additionally, Western countries are currently experiencing a labor shortage that could reach crisis levels in years to come, if not resolved when compounded with the ballooning cost of baby boomers on Social Security. New young immigrants would mitigate the economic turmoil that an aging population would reap. What about crime? There is no evidence to suggest that in the US immigrants commit more crime than native-born Americans. However, I would be lying if I said we wouldn't see an uptick in crime if you allowed almost everybody in, at least during the stabilization period. Poverty creates desperation, and while the market is still stabilizing, crime might increase, as evidenced in Europe. Irrespective of nationality, low-income young men between the ages of 14 to 30 are the prime demographic for this. There are 3 ways to reduce crimes in immigrant populations. First, offer more and better integration programs, language courses, sports programs, and apprenticeships. 2. Promote family-based immigration. Women and families serve as pacifying forces for young men. If they immigrate without them, the chance of violence increases. And finally, connect them with stable jobs. Less poverty will mean less crime. It goes without saying that the United States would have to have a major change of heart for an open borders policy to succeed. We can't even offer these things to the people here now. But in the future, open borders offer a truly revolutionary solution to modern day problems.
Turn the camera off and tell you where we're going to take them.
From the Iran is country, they do something like this, but we didn't know we're going to have the same situation here.
The GDP of the United States would steadily increase. Labor forces in poor countries are just not as productive as they would be in the United States, so they would produce much more wealth in their new homes. Numerous studies attest to the fact that foreign workers are more inefficient because of the tools of their labor, not personal failings or lower IQs, as some anti-immigration rhetoric would have you believe. Open borders would be the biggest shift in the global world order. With borders, we decide who prospers and who languishes. Without them, global poverty might be near eradicated. Short of toppling capitalism, open borders would be the biggest shift in the global world order. Global suffering would fall tremendously once people knew they were able to escape tyrannical governments abroad. Poor nations that wanted to remain intact would need to enact major reforms to prevent their population from leaving in mass. People would no longer be forced to work for pennies on the dollar in awful factories, pressuring multinational corporations and nations to finally change their practices, paying living wages and enacting humane working conditions. The only reason the workers of the global south work the way they do is because we force them to. Inequality would equalize as CEOs and international corporations would have to accept reduced profit margins without an easily exploitable workforce. Anti-immigration advocates are partly right. Open borders would reduce wages, but of the Bill Gates and Zuckerbergs of the world. Once analyzed from this framework, it becomes clear borders today are just corporate protectionism, and our strict laws and anti-immigration rhetoric reflects that. Any serious liberal, progressive, libertarian, or radical leftist needs to accept the abolition of borders as a necessary step in reducing inequality and promoting freedom. Even if the difficulties were a little more pronounced, and the economic and cultural benefits less identifiable, we owe it to the people of the world to start seriously reconsidering whether our borders are worth the suffering of billions of people across the planet. We can argue about the details all day. The thing that matters most now is starting the conversation. We start by de-radicalizing the idea of an open border. So next time someone asks you for your opinion on immigration reform, consider this as an answer. Thanks so much for watching. I'm attempting new things with each video, so if you like this one, make sure to like and subscribe, as they're only going to get better from here on out. Also, check out some of these older videos. Have a great day. Thanks.